Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we will talk about yoga guru Ramdev and Patanjali's claims about medicines that allegedly cure COVID 19. We will also take a quick look at CBSE's decision to make board examinations for Class 12 students optional this year. But first, we talk about the India China crisis. It has now been over a month since tensions have been rising between the two nuclear armed nations along the line of actual control, or the LAC. China in the region has changed the status quo. As we have discussed on previous podcast episodes, the Chinese troops have transgressed along at least 3 points on the LAC in eastern Ladakh: the Galwan Valley, where violent clashes took place earlier this month, Pagongso, and the Hot Springs area. Now, even as talks of de-escalation and disengagement continue to take place between the two countries, we have now learned that the Chinese have crossed the border in another strategic area and have built a defensive position in the Galwan Valley. In this segment, Sushant Singh, Indian Express's deputy editor, joins us to talk about these developments and how the diplomatic talks have not yet made a breakthrough. Sushant, we now understand that the Chinese have crossed the border in another strategic area, the Depsang Plains. Could you talk about what all we know about the situation there, and is this a new transgression?
So essentially, it is not a new transgression. It is just that it has been reported, but the full details had not come out. On Thursday, we were able to bring out all the details of the transgression, rather the incursion which has taken place in the Depsang Plains, where the Chinese have come 18 kilometers to the Indian side of the LAC at a place called Bottleneck. Bottleneck is just 7 kilometers to the east of the DSDBO road. And it's a rocky outcrop, which does not allow the vehicular traffic to go to Burtse from the LAC. So it lies between Burtse and the LAC. And there's a track which connects Burtse, a town which is on the DSDB road. It connects, Burtse is connected to this rocky outcrop called Bottleneck or Y Junction through a track. And at Y Junction or Bottleneck, this track bifurcates into two. One goes up north and another one goes southeast. And these two tracks are used by Indian soldiers to patrol various patrolling points, patrolling point 10, 11, 11A, 12, and 13. Patrol point 10 is on Raki Nala, patrol point 13 is on Jivan Nala. This is the same area where a major transgression, major incursion had taken place in 2013, when the Chinese soldiers had come in and pitched tents, exactly the same place where they are now, where they're deployed now. Then after negotiations, after 21 days, that situation was resolved.
You mentioned that, its proximity to the DSDBO road. It is also close to the DBO airstrip. Could you talk about the strategic importance of this region a bit?
See, the strategic importance of this region is for, as you rightly said, it is very close to the DSDBO road. It is barely 7 kilometers away from the DSDBO road. And secondly, it is also a portion of the LAC, which is at a very strategically significant area. The DBO airstrip, which was started in 2012-13, is barely 25 to 30 kilometers away. And as you know, the DSDBO airstrip is the only airstrip up there which allows India to air maintenance its troops. And the DSDBO airstrip is basically at the foot of the Karakoram Pass. The Karakoram Pass is the pass between India and China. So one is, of course, you lose all the territory which the Chinese have walked into. And secondly is that you also bring the Chinese into close proximity to the DSDBO road, which is a strategic road. And also the DBO airfield comes very close to where the Chinese are there. And most importantly, it leaves other areas on the LAC also open to the Chinese ingress. The Chinese could walk in other areas as well if they have walked into Depsang now.
Apart from this, we have also come to know that the Chinese troops have built a defensive position at the Galwan Valley side, where violent clashes had taken place on 15 June and where 20 Indian soldiers were killed. What do we know about the situation there, and how has it changed from how things were before?
So the satellite image on June 22nd actually shows that the same place, the same tents which the Indian soldiers had gone to get removed, those same tents have come up in much larger number, with better construction, with sangars, bunkers, the walls, etc., being constructed there, which are clearly Chinese, and they are on the Indian side of the LAC, which is what has been said in the Foreign Ministry's statement issued on Thursday. They have also said that this is on the Indian side of the LAC.
And talking about Chinese troops coming into Depsang, more troops on the Galwan Valley side, both these things, we've come to know about them even as military and diplomatic talks between the two countries, to escalate the situation along the LAC have been going on. What kind of effects have, these talks had on the situation on the ground between the two armies?
So one way to look at it is that these talks have failed, but that would not be correct. These talks have not failed to that extent that many assume them to be. The situation is not a black and white situation. There are shades of gray. It is because of the talks that the initial disengagement process has started. And after that process started, you had that clash because the Chinese did not move their tents out or did not move a camp out of the place from where they were supposed to move their camp out. And it is because of that the whole process of disengagement and de-escalation has been arrived at. But it would be correct to say that the progress has nowhere near been at the level or up to the expectations which people were expecting. So we are now, it's nearly 2 months since both the forces, both the armies are facing each other in very large numbers on the line of actual control. 20 Indian soldiers are dead, 76 Indian soldiers injured, 10 were taken captive. Many Chinese soldiers are believed to be injured or dead. We don't know their exact numbers yet. There are other clashes which have taken place. And in this environment, in this high tensions, which still continue to be there, it is not a very healthy situation, and the talks should have led to a bigger breakthrough. But the point to understand here is, if these talks have not led to a breakthrough, then there's a need to raise the level of these talks. Then the talk should happen at the level of the foreign minister or the NSA, or if the need be, the prime minister. Because essentially, it is sometimes one gets a feeling that the military is being burdened with this responsibility of talking, which is not its primary job. The primary job of talking is of diplomats and political leadership. And they should be taking the lead role in talking to the Chinese.
So, among the many things that we still don't know about this crisis seems to be what has triggered it. Why have the Chinese transgressed this time? We were earlier talking about the DSDB road. I mean, this is something that the Chinese, according to reports, have not liked. The other thing pointed out by many has been India's decision to convert Ladakh into a union territory and the abrogation of Article 370, which is something that Beijing had spoken out against. Are we any closer to finding out what has led to this current crisis?
To be very fair, we still do not know the reasons for why China did what it did. It is still based on speculation and hearsay. The reasons vary from, Article 370 being revoked and the creation of Ladakh as a new union territory, to China being more assertive on the line of actual control, to China responding to the perceived Indian closeness to the United States, to the fact that India is making certain infrastructure in the Ladakh border. All these reasons have been trotted out, but nobody can say for sure why the Chinese are doing what they are doing. But irrespective of why they are doing what they are doing, the outcome is that the tensions are very high on the disputed border between India and China.
Next, we talk about Ramdev. Earlier this week, Yoga Guru Ramdev, the promoter and owner of Patanjali Ayurved Limited, launched a Corona kit which he claimed cures COVID-19. This kit included an Ayurvedic extract called Coronil. During its launch in Uttarakhand's Haridwar city, he claimed that a clinical control study was done, and during it, 69% patients recovered in 3 days, while 100% patients were able to recover over a period of 7 days.
सबसे बड़ी बात ये थी, 3 दिन के अंदर 69% रोगी उसमें रिकवर हो गए, अर्थात पॉजिटिव से नेगेटिव हो गए. यह इतिहास की बहुत बड़ी घटना है. विदिन 3 डेज और 7 दिन के अंदर 100% रोगी नेगेटिव हो गए. यह बहुत बड़ी बात.
After this launch, the Ministry of Ayush ordered Patanjali to stop publicizing claims of a COVID-19 cure. And now, serious questions have emerged over the business practices of Patanjali and the clinical trial that Ramdev has talked about. In this segment, Conan Sheriff, who reported on the story, joined us on a call to talk about it. Conan, what do we know about these medicines that Ramdev is talking about and, the clinical trial that supposedly proves that these medicines cure COVID-19?
Yeah, so there are 2-3 things that we need to understand first. Right now, there is no medicine for COVID-19 treatment. So we are using allopathic medicines which are used for treating other symptoms or diseases. In the sense, if a COVID-19 patient develops a respiratory infection, then the conventional medicines used for respiratory medicines are used, etc. and etc. Okay. However, we know that there have been a lot of prophylactic treatments, which is basically to build immunity as an immunity booster. So in that sense, there have been a lot of states who have included homeopathic medicines, and there have been a lot of clinical trials that have been approved by the Clinical Registry of India related to the Ayurvedic medicines. So in that direction, even Patanjali sponsored trial was approved. The study clearly states that it was approved for assessing the impact of these 3-4 extracts, Ayurvedic extracts, on COVID-19 positive patients. This is not related to treatment. However, on Tuesday when he had a press conference, Baba Ramdev had a press conference, he clearly said that the Corona kit, which is a combination of all of these extracts, is for treatment of COVID-19. So that is completely a false claim. There is no treatment for COVID-19 as of now, including allopathic medicine. And the clinical trial per se also, it was never about treatment, but was about the impact of this medicine on COVID-19 patients.
You spoke to, the institute, the National Institute of Medical Science and Research that is based in Jaipur. You spoke to the people that were involved in this clinical trial. What have we found out about this trial and the details of it?
The most startling revelation about this trial was that it is not even complete. The principal investigator said that we need at least 25 more days to finalize the report. So we really don't know on what basis did Ramdev made his claims that we have come out with the results of the trial. So basically, prima facie, he said that they have had a sample size of just 100 COVID-19 patients. There are two groups. One is the active group, which was administered with this 4 medicines, that is Swasari Ras, Ashwagandha, Tulsi extract, and this nasal drop called Anutaila. And there was the placebo group who was not administered with this. So what they did was did the RT-PCR test on day 1, day 3, and day 7. An RT-PCR test is to check whether the patient is positive or negative. He said that on day 3, 69% of the patients in the active group who are having these Ayurvedic medicines tested negative, and only 50% tested negative in the active group. On day 7, he said all of the patients in the active group tested negative and were free of COVID-19. And in the other groups, only 65%. That means the remaining 35% still had a COVID-19 infection. However, when we asked him what kind of patients were enrolled in this, so he said that it was only mild and asymptomatic patients. Even the moderate symptomatic patients were not enrolled. However, when the trial was registered, it clearly specifically mentions that they would test even moderately symptomatic patients. Then, since it also had mildly symptomatic patients, I asked him, what did you administer allopathic, that is English medicine, for patients who develop COVID-19 symptoms like, it could be like fever or sore throat. He said, yes, we did use allopathic medicines to treat the symptoms. So clearly, this trial, even in the active group, allopathic medicines were used. So that's the big takeaway.
And in your piece, you also write that the principal investigator at the institute said that one of the inflammatory markers that they looked at to see whether the severity of the infection has gone down, even that didn't show any sign of reduction, right?
That's a very critical takeaway or very crucial evidence that has emerged from the clinical trial, that what happens in severe patients, you have inflammatory markers. So the doctors keep testing them. So one of them is the cytokines, which we commonly call as cytokine storm, of the interleukin 6, which shows excessive response in the immune system, and usually the storm damages the lung completely. So I asked him what happened. Did it show any improvement? So he said that it did show improvement, but it was not statistically significant, which means that the Ayurvedic medicines didn't have any impact on this inflammatory markers. And there were other 2 also inflammatory markers that they've tested. He said that we are still examining it, and the final evidence will be out only when the trial is complete, which will take another 25 days. So 3 big takeaways have been that only mild and asymptomatic patients have been tested in the clinical trial. Allopathic medicines were used if these patients had symptoms. And of course, the inflammatory markers, they didn't show any statistically significant improvement. So these are the takeaways. And of course, the fact that the trial itself is not complete.
So Ramdev, going on stage and making these claims and not mentioning these points that we just discussed, I suppose can be considered deceitful. I mean, because it's not even completed, the trial is not completed, cannot qualify as a proper clinical trial as of yet. And during a pandemic, this could be potentially harmful if COVID-19 patients do end up taking these medicines. So considering that, what actions has the government taken, against this?
So the Ayush Ministry has, a day after the press conference, ordered Patanjali to stop publicizing the claims and had then asked the state government to issue notices to the group that it violated the Drug and Cosmetic Acts. Okay, so the action will be taken under those sections. But what has been much more significant is the action taken by the Rajasthan government, which also has now said that there were no clearances given by the government for even conducting the trial. If we combine both of them together, it will be interesting to see what Patanjali, because it is one of the first time this kind of a case has come under the scanner, where you are making false claims for a treatment for something that there has never been a treatment. It's almost what we call as a discovery, but it has not undergone clearances. So there are certainly provisions. There might be criminal action. There are sections even of the IPC for making false claims. But since the first step is that the government has asked details on what was the protocol of the trial, what were the documents submitted, whether you got the institutional ethics committee clearance, what is the sample size, and finally, of course, the results of the trial. Once all of these data are submitted, since Indian Express has reported that it was just an interim report, but before that, like Rajasthan government is saying that there was no clearance. If there was no clearance, the big question is on the patients who are given these medicines. So we need to know whether the patients had any side effects. We still don't know. Without a clearance, putting someone on a clinical trial itself is a criminal act. There could be a death. So this whole consent process may be, a complete farce, that the patients gave them the consent. But even before the consent, you didn't have a clearance by the ethics committee, and patients were put on this trial. So there are multiple violations, at least prima facie violations, because if the final report comes that there were several patients who had developed side effects, because of this. And before that, you didn't have an institutional ethics committee clearance. Basically, it is what we call as quackery.
In the past as well, Ramdev has made claims that have been problematic or false. He has claimed that homosexuality can be cured through yoga and pranayam. His pharmacies have allegedly sold medicines claiming that they can help women give birth to male child. Now, because of just how famous he is and because of how big Patanjali is, these claims, do end up getting picked up by the media and the messages easily spread. So in a scenario like this where the word about, this Corona kit is already out, is part of the damage already done? And is there anything in the law that aims to stop this thing from happening?
Yeah, of course. The damage is really done. These medicines are, these extracts, I won't even use the word medicines. These extracts are completely, Ayurvedic extracts are all available in the market, including Patanjali's own, this Anutaila and Tulsi extract. So you will have people lining up outside these Ayurvedic stores and having a false sense of security that you would be treated of pandemic, and then the basic requirement of social distancing, of the other precautions that need to be taken, that could be completely compromised. The actual scientific evidence that we have so far of the infection. The government, we don't know in which direction it will act, because there have been claims even in the past, like you pointed out, but we haven't seen significant action taken by the government. However, in this, since it involves such an important and a serious issue, we need to know what will be the future course of action. But I'm reiterating, there are several sections in the Drug and Cosmetics Act which can be invoked. And of course, the criminal action also can be taken under relevant sections of the IPC. But like you said, he is a very, very popular figure. It will be interesting to see what will be the outcome. But the reaction of the Rajasthan government and the Uttarakhand government has been positive. Initially, of course, they have pulled up. Rajasthan government is clearly saying that we are going to stop the trials, whatever the future enrollments are, because they've not even got the clearance. If the Rajasthan government actually investigates what is the condition of each of the patients, then it will be a significant development. In Uttarakhand, with government which actually gave the license to manufacture these three components for immunity booster, that is a big question mark. You did give them for immunity booster, but however, the system was such that you're not able to track it, that when they actually launched it, because the news was already there a day before, that the company is launching something for COVID treatment. And the clearance had already come from Uttarakhand government. Uttarakhand government issued a fresh notice only after the central government said that you need to take action. So a big question mark on giving such license to manufacture for COVID-19 treatment, Now it claims that we did not mention that it was for treatment, but we only mentioned that it was for immunity booster. But it has to be investigated as to how even the first aspect was given a clearance without any clinical trial or clinical data.
And in the end, we talk about the Central Board of Secondary Education, or CBSE. Back in March, the CBSE exams of classes 10 and 12 had got interrupted due to the COVID-19 pandemic and had since remained pending. But yesterday, CBSE informed the Supreme Court that appearing for the remaining CBSE board exams will be optional this year for Class 12 students. Class 12 students will be evaluated under a special marking scheme in which their performance in the last 3 school examinations will be considered. The results under the special scheme will be declared this month. According to Ritika Chopra's report in the Indian Express, students who are dissatisfied with their results can opt for the pen and paper exam, which will be conducted by the board later this year. However, Class 10 students do not have this option. For them, the exams have been scrapped. Sources said that CBSE will issue a formal notification to this effect by today. This decision has come after parents expressed concerns over the safety of their children, as many states continue to report a record surge in COVID-19 cases on most days. The fact that many schools, which were supposed to act as examination centers, are currently being used for quarantine and isolation purposes also posed a significant logistical challenge. The Council for Indian School Certificate Examination, that is CISCE, has already decided to make the remaining papers for Class 10 and 12 students optional. Students can opt to have their results tabulated based on their performance in their school's pre-board exams. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show, as always, was edited and mixed by our producer Joshua Thomas. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Audio and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.